All right, let's talk. Have you ever felt like you're trying to run a race, but the track is made of mud? You have this fire inside you, this incredible sense of purpose, a mission you know you were born for. You take a step, you push forward, and instead of solid ground, you just find more resistance, more struggle. You're pushing with all your might, but you feel like you're going nowhere. It's that feeling of being completely and utterly stuck, right when you're trying your hardest to move forward. I know this feeling because I've lived it. I remember a time in my own journey when it felt like the universe was actively working against me. Every door I tried to open was locked. Every path I took led to a dead end. I was pouring all my energy, all my passion into my mission, and all I got back was a wall of resistance. It's a deeply frustrating and isolating experience. You start looking around at other people, and their paths seem so easy, so clear. And you just have to wonder, why is this so hard for me? Am I doing something wrong? And right there, in that moment of exhaustion and frustration, that's when the shadow creeps in. It's a cold, heavy voice that settles in your heart, and it whispers a deeply poisonous lie. It says, see, this is proof. You're not cut out for this. These obstacles aren't tests, they're stop signs. They are the universe's way of telling you to quit before you embarrass yourself. You're not strong enough, you're not worthy enough, and this constant struggle is just confirmation that you are, and always will be, a failure. This is the great fear, the fear that the obstacles are not part of the path, but proof that you are on the wrong path entirely. This fear, this heavy lie, it reminds me of an old story, one you won't find in any library. It's a story whispered in the embers of forgotten forges. It's the story of a young woman named Lyra, and how she learned that the obstacle is always the way. Lyra lived in a village called Silverwood, nestled so high in the mountains that the clouds were their neighbors and the eagles were their messengers. The village was famous for one thing, its blacksmiths who could forge steel that sang and held an edge for a lifetime. And Lyra was the last of the greatest lineage of these smiths. She had inherited the heart forge from her grandmother, a legendary figure who was said to have shaped swords for the spirits of the mountain themselves. The heart forge was not like any other. It was a massive structure of obsidian and cooled lava rock, rumored to be built around the still beating heart of a fallen star. It was said that a blade forged in its depths would be imbued with a living light, a power capable of protecting Silverwood from the creeping blight that was slowly consuming the forests at the mountain's base. This blight, a creeping corruption, was getting closer, and the village's survival depended on Lyra forging a new blade of legend, the Ethelgard. The problem, the one no one liked to talk about, was the fuel. The heart forge was impossibly demanding. It could not be lit with common coal or simple wood. Its star heart would only awaken when fed with a single, unique substance, ironwood. Ironwood was less of a tree and more of a geological miracle. It grew only in the highest, most treacherous slopes of the mountain. It was a petrified, ancient wood, so dense and magically resistant that it would shatter the blade of a normal axe. It was a smith's nightmare. It was heavy, it was stubborn, and it was a monumental struggle just to harvest a single log. Lyra, filled with the pressure of her legacy and the fear of the encroaching blight, felt the weight of the ironwood like a physical presence. The villagers watched her, their faces a mixture of hope and doubt. She was young, and the legends of her grandmother were large shadows to stand in. Her first attempts were a disaster. She led expeditions up the treacherous slopes, and her strongest assistants returned with broken axe heads and bruised hands. The few splinters of ironwood they managed to bring back were almost impossible to handle. She tried to burn it, but it resisted the flames of a normal fire. It was as if the wood itself refused to yield. Frustrated, she tried to cheat the forge. She brought cartloads of the finest mountain oak, dry and seasoned. She brought sacks of the purest coal from the deepest mines. She fed them to the heart forge, and it gave her back nothing but a sullen, lukewarm heat. The great obsidian structure remained cold to the touch. The star heart slept. The forge knew she was offering it a lesser fuel, and it refused the unworthy sacrifice. Despair began to settle over Lyra like the mountain fog. The whispers of the villagers grew louder. "She's not her grandmother," they'd say. "The magic is gone. The lineage is broken." Lyra started to believe them. She would sit before the cold, silent forge for hours, the weight of her failure a crushing stone in her chest. The blight was advancing, and she, the supposed protector, was helpless. The obstacle, the impossible ironwood, was not just a challenge. It was a verdict on her worthiness. And it had found her wanting. The shadow of doubt became her constant companion. It told her, "Your grandmother was a legend. You are just a girl playing with her tools. This forge, this sword, this responsibility, it's too much for you." The ironwood is a sign. It's telling you to stop. Give up. Let someone else try. Your failure is inevitable, so why prolong the agony? She was on the verge of announcing her defeat, of letting the heart forge fall silent forever, of letting the hope of Silverwood die with her. That night she was visited by Lyra, the village's oldest resident, a woman whose eyes held the wisdom of 1,000 winters. Lyra didn't offer sympathy or encouragement. She simply placed a single, gnarled splinter of ironwood in Lyra's hand. "You are fighting it," she whispered, her voice like the rustling of dry leaves. "You see its strength as an enemy. You curse its resistance. You have not yet learned the first rule of the forge. You cannot force the steel to bend. You must understand its nature and use its own heat to transform it. The same is true of the fuel. Stop fighting the wood, child. Listen to it." Lyra's words were a cryptic seed planted in the barren soil of Lyra's despair. Listen to the wood. How do you listen to something that shatters your tools and resists your fire? But with nothing left to lose, Lyra took the splinter of ironwood into her workshop. She didn't try to chop it or burn it. She just sat with it. She studied it. She ran her fingers over its impossibly dense surface, feeling the subtle lines of its grain, the history of its long, slow life etched into its form. She noticed that while it was incredibly hard, the grain flowed in a specific spiral pattern. Brute force from the outside was useless against it. The wood's strength was in its unified structure. Fighting its structure was a fool's errand. But what if she didn't fight it? What if she worked with it? A new idea, a flicker of light in her dark mind began to form. She stopped thinking about axes. Axes were for lesser woods. Ironwood was different. It demanded a different approach. She spent the next week not trying to harvest the wood, but creating a new tool. She took a piece of the finest steel she had, and she forged a set of thin, sharp wedges and a hammer with a perfectly balanced head. The next day, she returned to the Ironwood Grove alone. She didn't swing wildly. She found a log, and she studied its grain, just as she had with the splinter. She found the beginning of its spiral, and gently tapped the first wedge into a tiny fissure. Then another, and another. She wasn't chopping. She was persuading. With a final, resonant tap, The log split open with a clean, sharp crack, falling into two perfect halves along its natural line of strength. It was a revelation. The strength of the ironwood wasn't an obstacle. It was a guide. Its resistance was a map, showing her exactly where to apply pressure. She had been trying to break down a fortress door when the key was in the lock the entire time. She had been treating the wood like an enemy when it was actually a teacher, demanding a higher level of skill, a deeper level of understanding. She had to become a better blacksmith just to prepare the fuel. The next challenge was the fire. When she finally managed to get the ironwood to catch in the heart forge, the heat it produced was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It was a white-hot, furious inferno, a captured piece of the sun. It melted her standard iron tongs. It cracked the stone floor around the forge. It was a raw, untamable power. Her first instinct was to dampen it, to control it, to reduce its intensity. But that only made the fire smoke and sputter, producing a foul-smelling gas. She remembered Lyra's words again. Listen to it. She realized the intense, almost uncontrollable heat wasn't a side effect. It was the entire point. The legendary ore for the Ethogard, a rare meteoric alloy stored in the village vault for generations, was said to be filled with impurities. A normal fire could melt it, but it couldn't purify it. It required a heat so intense, so violent, that it would burn away every last trace of dross, leaving only the pure, star-born essence of the metal behind. The obstacle was the very thing she needed. The wood's impossible resistance to being cut was a sign of its incredible density. Its incredible density was what allowed it to burn at an impossible temperature. And that impossible temperature was the only thing that could create an impossible blade. The problem was not the problem. The problem was the solution, wrapped in a difficult package. Her perspective shifted entirely. The obstacle was not in her way. The obstacle was her way. With this newfound understanding, Lyra approached her work with a new spirit. She was no longer a victim of her circumstances. She was a partner with them. She didn't try to control the fire. She learned to channel it. She designed new, triple-insulated tongs. She created a system of vents and flues to direct the flow of heat. She danced with the inferno, respecting its power, guiding its energy, using its ferocity for her own purpose. She was not the fire's master, but its collaborator. She placed the meteoric ore into the crucible and thrust it into the white-hot heart of the forge. The fire roared, embracing the metal. The ore glowed, from red to orange to a blinding white. She watched as the impurities, the weaknesses, the parts that did not belong were incinerated, burned away to nothing by the sheer, relentless power of the ironwood fire. The very thing that had caused her so much pain and doubt was now the agent of purification. The obstacle was the catalyst for perfection. When she finally pulled the purified metal from the forge, it shone with an inner light, a soft, silver-blue luminescence. It was alive. And as she began to hammer the metal on the anvil, her strikes were different. They were not the strikes of a desperate girl trying to live up to a legend. They were the strikes of a master smith who had been forged herself in the fires of adversity. The resilience she had learned from the wood, the precision she had learned from splitting it, the respect for power she had learned from the fire, all of it flowed through her arms, into the hammer and into the blade. The finished Ethogard was more than a sword. It was a masterpiece. It was light in the hand, yet impossibly strong. A faint blue light pulsed from its core, and it sang a clear, beautiful note when it cut through the air. It held the strength of the Ironwood, the fire of the heart forge, and the spirit of the blacksmith who had refused to be defeated. She had not just forged a sword. She had forged herself. The obstacle had not been a barrier to her mission. It had been the curriculum of her transformation. You chosen one are Lyra. And your life, with all of its painful, frustrating, relentless obstacles, is your Ironwood. You have been cursing it. You have been fighting it. You have been breaking your tools and your spirit against its unyielding surface. You have been looking for an easier fuel, a smoother path, because you have been operating under the great delusion that the path is supposed to be easy. And you have been fearing that these challenges are a sign that you should give up. But what if they are not stop signs? What if they are ingredients? What if the financial struggle you are facing is not a punishment, but a fire designed to forge unbreakable resilience and creative ingenuity in you? What if the difficult relationship that drains your energy is not a curse, but a divine lesson designed to teach you how to set boundaries and master your own emotional state? What if your creative block is not a sign of failure, but a necessary void, forcing you to dig deeper and find a more authentic voice? The story of Lyra is the secret of the Stoics, the great alchemical formula for turning lead into gold. The obstacle is the way. The resistance you are feeling in your life is not a cosmic accident. It is customized fuel, perfectly designed for the forging of your unique soul, for the creation of your legendary purpose. You have been praying for the strength to complete your mission, and the universe has answered your prayer by giving you difficult things to lift. The strength is not given, it is forged. The intense, almost uncontrollable heat of the Ironwood was the only thing that could purify the star metal. In the same way, the intense pressure of your obstacles is the only thing that can burn away your impurities, your ego, your doubt, your impatience, your attachments. It is forcing you to become the person who is actually capable of wielding the sword you are meant to create. You are not just building your mission. Your mission is building you. And it is using the very obstacles you hate as its hammer and its fire. So it's time for the alchemical step. It's time to stop fighting the wood and start listening to it. I call this practice the Ironwood reframing. It's simple, but it will change everything. I want you to take out a journal or just close your eyes and do this internally. First, identify one major obstacle in your life right now. The one that feels the heaviest, the most unfair. See it clearly in your mind. Now, instead of asking the victim's question, "Why is this happening to me?" I want you to ask the blacksmith's question. What is this obstacle forging in me? Be honest. Is this challenge forcing you to become more patient, more courageous, more compassionate? Is it teaching you a skill you desperately need? Is it forcing you to let go of something you've been clinging to? Identify the quality, the strength, the virtue being forged in you by this fire. Finally, you are going to relabel this obstacle. It is no longer a problem or a struggle. It is your Ironwood. When you think of it, say to yourself, "This is not a wall. This is my fuel. This is the sacred fire that is purifying the steel of my soul." By changing the name, you change your relationship to it. You move from being a victim of the obstacle to being a student of it. You become the blacksmith, not the unshaped metal. This is the ultimate Stoic power, not to change the world, but to change your perception of it. So now let us make a vow, a new compact with our own journey. Say this with me and feel the truth of it settle into your bones. I am the blacksmith of my own soul. I will no longer curse the fuel I am given. My obstacles are my Ironwood, the sacred fire that forges my strength and purifies my purpose. I will not break against the hardness of my path. I will learn from it. I will use it. For the obstacle is not in the way. The obstacle is the way. You are decoding the very fabric of your reality here at Soul Cipher. Each piece of wisdom is a key, and each video is a door. If you are serious about your mission, if you are ready to stop being a victim of your circumstances and start being the blacksmith of your destiny, then your training must continue. Subscribe to this channel and activate the notifications. It's not just about watching videos. It's about collecting the tools you need for the forge. The world is waiting for the unique blade that only you can create. It's time to light the fire